So I'm just going to actually turn that layer off for a second. I'm going to go over to one of my other images that's ready to go. Again, me looking rather ridiculous. Copy that, paste that in, okay? And I want to have a strong contrast between that background and this guy, right? And the contrast here is actually not that bad, but right now the figure here, me, is kind of pretty bright, but this is also kind of bright here too. So I'm going to bring the brightness down on that. Go to Image. Again, first I select that layer. Got to make sure that layer is selected. Image Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. You can see I'm bringing that down. I can even bring the contrast up if I wanted, or down. I think I'm actually going to bring the contrast down on that a little bit. Click OK. Okay, and now I want to put a gradient map on this character, on me here. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Gradient Map, and you can see it's set to this weird red one. I want to choose something different. Something that's going to contrast with that background gradient. Okay, so blue and orange is kind of what I'm working with here. Those are sort of complementary pair there. They're kind of opposites on the color wheel. And so what I want to do, I don't really like this brown, so I'm going to go in there and I'm going to make some more of that blue. Same thing with this brown. Blew that up a little bit. Okay, now I got this sort of weird like icy look to it, right? And I'm going to adjust these until, yeah, see, bringing that one on the brightness down a little bit is nice. I'm going to adjust this because I don't want to have like too sharp contrast on him, on me. Okay, let's see here. And it's a little tricky. You got to just kind of experiment a little bit, get something that you're generally happy with. I think that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to actually make, I'm going to call that ice. I'm going to call that new. I'll save that one. Click OK. Okay, so now we got Brant here. Now, and you know what? I'm still not happy with how this background is looking compared to me. I don't think the contrast is great enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and go under the blend mode here, and I'm going to check it to darken. Okay, and now you can see rather than the normal view, it actually sort of blends and darkens what's behind it, right? That gradient behind it. There's a lot of different options here. You can set it to screen, right, and sort of like overlaps them very carefully. You can set it to lighter color. Experiment around with these. Okay, you can get this kind of gives it like a reverse effect. There's a lot you can do with these. Okay, so let's set this to what was the one I liked? I liked darker color, right? And now you can see there's a pretty good contrast going on here. I'm going to adjust that over a little bit. And especially the contrast between this black area around my figure, right? So really, really light versus really, really dark. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to, let me see, I could work with the clone stamp a little bit more, maybe copy this guy out a little bit. I think I'm going to actually make some copies of this right here. Hold down Option, drag him out. I'm going to have him just descend. Make 3 copies of him there. And I'm going to adjust the opacity of these guys. So I click on this middle layer, and over under layers, I've got my opacity, and I can drop that down actually. So I'm going to have that so it's a little bit see-through. Then I'm going to click on this one and have that be a little bit more see-through. So it's sort of staggered, sort of ghostly in there. And then I'm going to take the final image of the third image for the project, and I'm going to pop that in there. And I'm going to figure out a way to get that into the composition where it's kind of dynamic, right? After that, I'm going to work on enhancing the movement. Repetition really frequently creates movement anyways. Okay, so I'm going to pop that into place. Apply that. Let's go to Image, Adjustments. Let's give this guy a gradient map. Let's see here. No. And then we change the color on that to be, put a little bit blue on that. Oops, yeah, pull the darkness down there, make that a little bit blue. and that colors clash a little bit. I just want to adjust that blue, get that blue looking pretty nice. Okay, and then let's add another point of white in there. Okay, so I'm generally happy with that. And now what I want to do is I want to show you how to use both the smudge tool and the liquify tool. Okay, with this guy up here, I'm going to show you liquify. I make sure I have the layer I want selected. Go to Filter, Liquify. Okay, and then with this, you can click on the Forward Warp tool, and you can actually just you got your brush sizes over here. You can make the brush smaller if you want, or bigger, affect different size areas. But you can actually just kind of pull and stretch like this is like a putty on a plate. And I'm going to make it so that my head is really big. Okay, got a big hanging lumpy head. Okay, and then I'm going to do this twist tool too. There's a pucker tool where you can make things kind of fall in. You can twist things. I'm going to make my elbows just twist a little funny. Alright, and this gives it, it's not exactly an element of pop art. It's a little bit surreal, but why not? I'm going to just twist them up a little bit. Okay, and you can adjust all the settings on these over here. Okay, now I'm going to click OK. And it's got to render out the liquify result. Okay, and while we're waiting for that, let me see. We got our 3 separate images. We got color and contrast. We're working on movement right now. We've got a gradient map, liquify, the gradient tool, and the smudge tool is what I'm going to show you next. I think we got everything else off of this tutorial, so we're going to wrap up in just about a minute here, if the computer cooperates. Okay, so now you can see my head has become large and warped. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to just turn that layer off for just 1 second. I'm going to go back to these layers here. I'm going to merge them as I showed you earlier. And I'm going to go to the smudge tool. When you see your toolbar, you'll see this little like teardrop thing usually as a default. If you click and hold down on that and look under, there's the smudge tool. Okay, and I'm going to smudge these gentlemen here. And smudging, you can use that to kind of pull out, really similar to the forward warp tool. And you can use this to kind of smear things and create movement, right? Movement can be created through this whole repetition. We got these faces back here, but it can also be created by this sort of like blurring of space, as if something's just kind of smearing past you because it's going so fast, right? And again, this it's a pretty good size file. One reason why the computer is taking so long is because, again, we have this set to 300 pixels per inch, and it's a pretty large file. We're talking about 11 by 17 inches, so that about 50 megabytes when it was empty. Right, so now it's going to be actually a really, really big size file. Okay, so I've got some movement in here. I'm going to turn this layer back on for this gentleman here, and then I might just move him around a little bit. Oops. Wrong layer. Sure, I'm on that layer. Okay, I'm going to just shrink him down just a little bit. Okay, and now this is sort of my my nightmarish pop art poster. Okay, here's another one I've got up on the web page right now. Exact same kind of idea. I'm using with the multiples of images. You can see the smudge tool. I use the liquify tool on the background here, and also to stretch out, make my hand really, really long. Got that gradient map, everything set up, and it's really high contrast. You can see that this stands out really, really sharply compared to this black background. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and leave it off at that, and go ahead and good luck with your project. Thanks. Bye bye.